Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. I also rise tonight to speak about the fact that this week is Harmony Week and today, the 21st of March, is Harmony Day. This has become an important event on the national calendar, and I want to recognise and thank the many organisations around Tasmania who have organised and are hosting events this week around the whole state that actively celebrate diversity and promote the treatment of all people with dignity and respect. However, in the context of Harmony Week, I want to go a little into the history. It's a long story, but I'm going to sum it up for you. In 1999, the then Liberal Howard government commissioned a study on Australian attitudes about race. The report was scathing and including a recommendation, which I'm going to paraphrase for you, that campaigns which focused on racism were destined to fail as most Australians were too uncomfortable to have conversations about racism. It was after this that what used to be events recognising March 21st as the United Nations declared International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination changed into the events we know today as Harmony Week. While I do recognise the many positive events and movements that have grown over this time, it is important that we don't lose sight of this history and that shift away from openly, honestly and boldly discussing issues of race in this country and continue to recognise the 21st of March as the International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination. Mr Deputy Speaker, I say this against the deplorable and deeply worrying scenes that we saw unfold in Melbourne over the weekend, where an event hosting a UK anti-trans activist event speaking on the steps of Victoria's Parliament was joined by actual neo-Nazis chanting Nazi rhetoric and displaying the Nazi salute. We need to be abundantly clear, Mr Speaker, that Nazis are not welcome in this country. Nazi rhetoric is not welcome here. The Nazi salute is not welcome here. The Victorian Premier Daniel Andrews was right when he said, and I quote, "Nazis aren't welcome, not on Parliament steps, not anywhere. They were there to say the trans community don't deserve rights, safety or dignity. That's what Nazis do. Their evil ideology is to scapegoat minorities and it's got no place here." He went on to say that those who stand with them don't either, and that every trans Victorian, he said, "Our government will always support you and we will always respect you because your rights are not negotiable," end quote. Mr Deputy Speaker, the Victorian Liberal opposition leader, John Pesutto, was also right when he has moved to expel a member of his caucus for attending that event. Mr Speaker, the same UK anti-transgender speaker was in Hobart today. She was invited to an event to speak on the steps of Parliament House, on the lawns of Parliament House, and to share her divisive anti-transgender views. To the relief and to the pride of many of us here, while only a tiny handful of people turned out to hear her and her small group of supporters, there were over 500 transgender people, allies and friends who stood together as one in a protest standing up for the rights of transgender and gender diverse Tasmanians. I was proud of our town today, Mr Deputy Speaker. I was proud that today our town, our city, our state made it abundantly clear that transgender rights are human rights, that hate is not welcome in our city or our state, and that we come together to support the rights of our transgender sisters and brothers. In honour of the history of the true origins of Harmony Day and the millions of people who have died and continue to experience violence globally in the name of politeness, let's name a few things up. Trans women are women. That's a fact. Trans women experience violence of all forms at higher rates than non-trans women, with trans women of colour at the highest risk. That's a fact. Racism looks like displaying Nazi symbols and gestures. That's a fact.
Yep.
And racism and discrimination also look like not challenging comments or jokes that are in fact racist, sexist, transphobic, homophobic or otherwise discriminatory. Racism and discrimination looks like discriminatory hiring and housing legislation. It's meritocracy. It's not believing marginalised people's experiences, telling them that they must have misunderstood. It's allowing violent rhetoric that is rooted in fear and hate to take hold over the scientific and statistical evidence to the contrary. It's changing the name of something for the comfort of white people instead of focusing on the impact of racism on people of colour. Mr Deputy Speaker, we need to promote a state where all people are treated with dignity, respect and have the freedom to live their life in peace and with pride. The government has a draft bill to ban the display of Nazi symbols, and Labor has welcomed that bill and today welcomes the government's announcement that they will be expanding that bill, as Labor lobbied for, to expand that to ban the Nazi salute also. It's exactly what we should be doing, Mr Deputy Speaker, because Nazi salutes, Nazi rhetoric is not welcome in this state. So I'll finish by again thanking the many people and organisations in Tasmania that are doing the work set out by the United Nations with the International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination and Harmony Week. If you go to harmony.gov.au, you will find a link to the Tasmanian events happening around the state. The Hobart Council website is promoting Harmonious Hobart events, which include lots of different events. The Multicultural Council is hosting events all around the state. Thank you to these organisations and more who are working towards the goals of inclusiveness, respect and belonging for everyone who calls Australia home. They are indeed embodying the theme of Harmony Week for 2023, which is Everyone Belongs. And Mr Deputy Speaker, finally, I want to again pay my respects to the hundreds of Tasmanians who turned out today on the Parliament lawns to defend the rights of transgender and gender diverse Tasmanians and to make it clear that hatred is not welcome in our beautiful island state.
Hear, hear. Hear, hear.